After Effects has a built-in renderer designed to work with both 3D text and shapes. You also have the ability of going to Cinema 4D Lite for 3D. Let's take a look at some of the options available with your Adobe CC subscription.
So let's take a look at some of the 3D options available to us in After Effects without having to go into third-party plugins. You can see here I'm in my Chapter 4.1 RT composition. RT stands for Ray Traced. And there are a few things already set up in my project. I've got a solid that's locked called Ramp. I've got a Illustrator file, a Snowflake. I've got a text layer, and I've got a camera. And I want to basically take the text layer as well as the Illustrator file and make them extruded in 3D space. So before I do this to the Illustrator file, what I need to do is select it and go to the Layer menu and choose to create shapes from Vector Layer. This will create a shape layer of my vector layer that I can now extrude using the Ray Traced renderer. You'll notice it turned off my Illustrator file, and I just dragged that to be underneath the text. I'm going to go here and actually change its fill. I'm going to click up here at the top, and let's just change that to another color. I'll change it to a purplish type color. Okay, so now that that's set up, it's all about making some changes to the renderer that we're using. Right now we're using the Classic 3D renderer. And if I click on this button right here, this will bring us to our composition settings. And in the Advanced tab, we can switch the renderer from the Classic 3D to the Ray Trace 3D, which will allow us to create 3D extruded models. Now, if this is the first time that you're doing this, you're going to get a warning dialog box that says, if I enter into the 3D Ray Traced renderer, I lose all of these types of things. And these things could be masks, these things are blending modes, these things are preserving transparency. So going to the Ray Traced renderer, you've got a bunch of options, including bending layers, creating 3D shapes and objects, having reflection layers, having environment layers in your project, but you lose a bunch of stuff as well. So keep this in mind when we enter this renderer, as well as keep in mind that it really wants to latch onto a graphics card in order to work appropriately. If you don't have the appropriate graphics card, the Ray Traced renderer is going to be extremely slow. This is in the 2015.3 Creative Cloud at the time that I'm using this. I'll press OK to go back into my project, and nothing takes place by default. But the secret is when we go into the layer's material settings. I want to make the shape layer also 3D along with my text. And let's press the C key to allow ourselves to orbit around this scene to get a better sense for this. So the C key is just going to activate my camera and allow me to orbit around the scene. And I can see that this text as well as the shape layer is still flat. And what I'm going to do is now select the text layer and hit AA to reveal the material options of this in order to extrude the 3D text. And that's going to show me the geometry options. And you can see here the option for the extrusion depth, which I'm going to make 20. And the minute I do, you can see the rendering taking place there at the bottom, but my 3D text is now extruded. Excellent. I'll hit the disclosure triangle to close that out and repeat this step here with my shape layer. I'm going to hit AA to reveal those material options. Let's go into our extrusion depth. You got also these options for bevel style and whole bevel depth, but let's increase that to 20. And we can see it extrudes there for the snowflake shape layer as well, right there in our scene. So let's make a couple more changes to each of these layers. We have the option of colorizing these any ways we want. And when we're in 3D space, keep in mind that there are different facets to our text. There's the front of our text, there's the side of our text, there's the bevel of our text, as well as there's the back of our text. If we select our text shape layer and just reveal its contents, see here the animate menu. First of all of the animations that I want for 2D text are available here as long as I enable per character 3D. It will happen on extruded text. But the options for the front, bevel, side, and back to colorize them in different ways are here as well. So I can come here and add another color property to say the bevel to outline or basically colorize my text's bevel in a different way. On top of this, you've got options for lighting both your text and these layers by going to Layer, New, Light. And once you have lights in your 3D Ray Trace renderer scene, such as a point light with a color of a yellow and an intensity of 1, you can see a noticeable difference in the way that your text as well as that shape layer look. So you can see there that a little bit of lighting goes a long way. And think about adding real 3D camera rigs to this to have even more believability in your scene. Now, on top of the Ray Traced renderer having that option of extruding both text and shape layers, you also have the ability to go to Cinema 4D. So to see this, we're going to go to our Chapter 4.1 Cinema 4D composition, just behind this one that I have opened in my timeline. It's in the Chapter 4 folder. And you can see I have the exact same scene here. I've got my snowflake's text as well as the snowflake shape. and there's a camera in my scene, and there's a background that's been turned off. So how do I get this over to Cinema 4D? I select the Chapter 4.1 Cinema 4D composition in the project panel. I'm going to go to the File menu and choose to export this as a Maxon Cinema 4D exporter. A warning comes up saying that there are some 2D layers that are found and that these will not be exported. And that's okay, we can always recreate them in Cinema 4D. It's referring to the ramp in particular as well as the Illustrator file. But keep in mind that Illustrator file is a shape layer. So knowing that this warning came up, we can press OK. And now our exporter is asking us how we'd like to handle our 3D text. We can extrude it as text as shapes, as the highest fidelity, or preserve editable text, which is what I want in this case. This will mean the ability to change the font and the text content when we go into Cinema 4D. Once I press OK, it's asking us to save out a Cinema 4D file, which we'll have to re-import back into After Effects. I'm going to head to my desktop to go to the Cinema 4D export folder. And here I'm going to now just rename my file. I'm going to call it C4D export. Once I do, I'll hit save. It saves to my system, and this is where I have to now re-import it back into After Effects to send it to Cinema 4D Lite. So I'm going to double click here in my project panel and go to that same location where I saved it, the Cinema 4D export.c4d file. I'll choose to open it. And here's that Cinema 4D file. Now to get it over to Cinema 4D Lite, I can actually just select it and drag it into a new composition. And from here, you can see first of all, oh wow, I already have some 3D extruded text. And on the actual Cinema 4D layer, the file here that's selected, I'm going to head over to Effect Controls. We'll see that there is a Cineware effect on there. Now, the quality of this isn't so good, so I'm going to change the renderer from software to another option. Let's change that to Standard Final. Fantastic. Just gives us a better quality export. Or we can use OpenGL as well for a fast renderer, which can go a long way for our projects, unlike the ray traced renderer. So with that, let's just select this file and actually hit Command E, and that's going to bring us into Cinema 4D Lite. So once we come inside, all of the layers that we've brought inside are located on the right-hand side in the Objects panel. And you can see the two layers, both the snowflake's text and the snowflake, which is great. Now, the background doesn't show, but that's because it was a 2D file. And if I click and drag here with my 1, 2, and 3 keys, I can easily navigate around the scene. So here are those layers. I'm just going to hit the plus button to look inside. We can see those snowflake outlines, the snowflake layer, as well as my camera. I'll select the snowflake and see that it's been extruded here in Maxon, and I can go down to the movement section and play with the Z parameter to extrude that even further. Another thing I can do is, because we made this as editable text, I'll select the text, and here where it's in the object properties under the object tab, just get rid of the S for snowflake. That's how easy it is to change things in Cinema 4D. Keep in mind there is a entire Lynda course dedicated to Cinema 4D Lite from Angie Taylor that you should definitely check out to find out more information about how you can utilize that for your 3D projects.